Chapter 3. The Martyr's Echo. Location: Planet Vilos, Courtyard of the Basilica of St. Catherine. Date: 344 M42. Status: Miracle in progress. The axe did not fall. It should have fallen. The laws of physics, the momentum of a 50-ton greater demon, and the sheer narrative weight of the slaughter demanded it. Canoness Alethea had closed her eyes, her soul prepared for the Emperor's embrace. But the sound that rang out was not the wet tear of flesh, nor the crunch of ceramite. It was the clear, bell-like toll of metal striking an immovable object. Clang! A shockwave of displaced air blew the dust from the courtyard, knocking Alethea to her knees. She opened her eyes. Standing over her was a sister. Her armor was unpainted obsidian, her vestments pristine white. She held a standard-issue power sword, a weapon that should have shattered into shrapnel against the warp-forged brass of the bloodthirster's great axe. But the sword held. The unknown sister held the blade aloft with one hand, her boots locked onto the cracked marble. Her knees were bent, her posture perfect. Sparks showered down around her like holy rain. The bloodthirster roared in confusion, pushing its immense weight down. The ground beneath the unknown sister cracked, spiderwebbing out for 10 meters, but she did not buckle. She looked down at Alethea. Her face was calm, beatific, and terrifyingly serene amidst the apocalypse. "Why have you stopped singing, Alethea?" the unknown sister asked. Her voice cut through the roar of the demon, clear as a voxcaster on a quiet frequency. Alethea stared, her mouth agape. The demon, the song is the tether," the sister said, grunting slightly as the demon applied more pressure. The air around the meeting of the blades began to warp, reality struggling to decide which force was stronger, the rage of a god or the stubborn refusal of the guest. "If you stop singing, the dark wins. Continue the hymn, finish the verse." The unknown sister shoved. It was an impossible motion. A human woman shoving back a beast the size of a titan. But she did it. She parried the axe upward, exposing the demon's midsection. "Now," the sister commanded. "Purge it with his light." Alethea's shock broke. Instinct took over. She raised her bolter and fired. "For the Emperor! From the begetting of demons!" The bolt round struck the demon's chest. Usually this would be a pinprick, but as the round left the barrel, it passed through the golden aura radiating from the unknown sister. The bolt flared with white fire. It struck the demon's brass armor and detonated with the force of a crack missile, blowing a chunk of warp flesh apart. The demon howled, not in anger, but in pain. "He is with us," Sister Verity screamed from the flank. "Look, the saint is with us." The remaining 50 sisters, battered and bloody, saw the impossible. They saw a lone warrior holding back the tide, and in that sight their exhaustion evaporated. Agency returned to them. They were no longer victims waiting to die. They were the Emperor's wrath made manifest. "Form firing line," Alethea screamed, scrambling to her feet. "Focus fire on the beast. Do not let the saint stand alone." The battle reignited, but it was different now. The unknown sister did not fight like a soldier. She fought like a symbol. She moved into the fray, drawing the demon's attention. The bloodthirster swung its whip, a lash of hellfire meant to decapitate 3 novitiates. The unknown sister stepped into the path. She didn't block it. She took it. The lash wrapped around her waist, burning through the power armor, searing into flesh. She didn't scream. She didn't falter. She grabbed the whip with her free hand, anchoring the demon in place. "Strike him now," she called out to the squad of seraphim hovering above. "While he is tethered." The seraphim descended, their hand flamers spewing promethium. The fire should have washed over the demon harmlessly, but fueled by the proximity of the unknown sister, the flames burned white hot. The demon thrashed, trying to pull its whip back, but the unknown sister held fast, smoke rising from her melting armor. She was dying. Alethea could see it. The guest's armor was being rent apart. Her blood, bright red, strikingly human, splattering the white marble. Every wound she took seemed to embolden the others. A sister superior, missing an arm, charged a pack of bloodletters with a chainsword, moving with a speed she shouldn't possess. "Pain is an illusion," she screamed, cutting the demons down. "That's it," the unknown sister whispered, a smile touching her lips as a brass axe cleaved into her shoulder pauldron, biting deep into the meat of her collarbone. Feed the stream, struggle, defy. She was acting as a lightning rod for the enemy's hate and a battery for the sisters' faith. She wasn't winning the fight, she was making it possible for them to win it. The bloodthirster, enraged by this gnat that refused to break, dropped its axe and grabbed the unknown sister with a massive clawed hand. It lifted her high into the air, squeezing. Ceramite crunched. Ribs snapped like dry twigs. "I will drink your soul." "Ugh," the demon bellowed, its voice shaking the foundations of the basilica. The unknown sister, crushed in the grip of the beast, blood pouring from her mouth, looked down at the 12 remaining sisters who had gathered below. She didn't look at the demon. She looked at Alethea. "Do not waver," she choked out. "The final blow belongs to the faithful." She drove her power sword, not into the demon, but into the demon's wrist, pinning its hand to its own forearm. The beast shrieked, its grip loosening just a fraction. "For the saint!" Alethea roared. She did not aim for the head, she aimed for the heart. She revved her chainsword to maximum, ignited her jump pack, and launched herself into the air. She was just a human, a mortal woman in power armor, but in that moment, she carried the weight of a species that refused to go quietly into the night. She slammed into the demon's chest, driving the chainsword deep into the wound the bolter had opened earlier. Behind her, the other 11 sisters poured every ounce of firepower they had into the open wound. Meltaguns hissed, bolters roared. The combined assault, fueled by absolute, undeniable faith, hit critical mass. The bloodthirster's physical form could not sustain the damage. With a final, hate-filled roar, its body began to dissolve into brass dust and sulfur. It exploded outward, a shockwave of banishment that knocked everyone flat. Silence returned to the courtyard. The smoke cleared. Lying in the center of the crater was the unknown sister. Her armor was a ruin. Her chest was crushed. Her arm was severed. Alethea scrambled over the rubble, tearing off her helmet. She fell to her knees beside the Savior. The other surviving sisters gathered around, weeping, not in despair, but in reverence. The unknown sister's eyes were open. They were dimming, but there was still that faint, static-like flicker deep within the iris. "You," Alethea gasped, taking the guest's remaining hand. "You banished the dark." "No," the guest whispered, blood bubbling past her lips. "You did. I merely held the door open." "Who are you?" Alethea pleaded. "We must know. We must record this in the Order's annals. What is your name, Holy One? What order do you hail from?" The guest looked up at the bruised, purple sky. The warp storm was clearing. The sun was coming out. The war would continue. The killing would go on. The stream would flow. She looked back at Alethea. "I am the echo of your resolve," the guest said softly. "I am the reason you do not break when the night is long. I am the proof that as long as you bleed, you matter." Alethea squeezed the hand. "The echo of resolve. Saint Endura." "Sure," the guest murmured, the human mask slipping for a second, the tone becoming too casual, too detached. "That works. Just keep fighting. Never stop fighting. If you stop, the silence wins." The guest exhaled. The body did not go limp. It simply dispersed. Like a heat haze on a road, the armored form of the unknown sister shimmered. It turned into white motes of light, then into static, and then into nothingness. There was no body to bury, only the scorch marks where she had stood. Alethea stared at her empty hands. She felt a fire in her chest, a burning determination that hadn't been there an hour ago. She stood up. She looked at her 11 sisters. They were broken, bleeding, and exhausted, but their eyes were burning with the same fire. "Reload," Canoness Alethea ordered, her voice like iron. The lower city is still infested. The saint has given us a mandate. We do not stop. We do not stop, the sisters chorused. They turned, marching back toward the sounds of gunfire in the distance, ready to feed the war. Location: Inquisitorial Black Ship Saints Scourge, Bridge. Date: redacted +3 standard minutes. Lord Inquisitor Hestia was screaming at a tech priest. What do you mean, signal lost? You cannot lose a signal that is inside the ship. Magos, the tech priest droned. The internal sensors register no biological mass matching the target. However, external hull sensors indicated a departure, followed by nothing. He ceased to exist. Find him! Hestia slammed her hand on the hololith table. If he is a demon, he will try to re-enter. If he is a Xenos, he has fled. I want void sweeps. I want... Pop. The sound was soft, like a cork being pulled from a bottle. Hestia spun around. Standing on the command deck, directly behind the captain's throne, was the guest. He was back in the gray fatigues. There was no blood on him, no crushed chest, no severed arm. He looked exactly as he had in the interrogation cell, perhaps a little more refreshed, like a man who had just eaten a light snack. He was holding an apple. He took a bite. The entire bridge crew froze. Armsmen raised shotguns. The Grey Knights, who had been guarding the blast doors, racked the slides of their storm bolters. The guest chewed thoughtfully, swallowed, and looked at Hestia. That was spicy, the guest said, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. A little heavy on the brass, but the finish? The emotional resonance of the martyrdom? Exquisite. Hestia stared at him, her mind unable to reconcile the sensor reports with the man standing in front of her. You walked out into the void. You vanished. I went for takeout, the guest explained, gesturing vaguely with the apple. The delivery service in this sector is terrible, so I had to go pick it up myself. He took another bite, ignoring the 20 weapons pointed at his head. You should be pleased, Inquisitor. Your farm on Vylos remains productive. The livestock is spirited. I think they will produce excellent conflict for at least another century. He smiled, that same uncanny, too-knowing smile. Now, were we discussing my containment, or are we ready to talk about where I am needed next?